Well, we get started on our next chapter. It's chapter 25, and it's on World War I. So in the late 19th century, which would be the 1800s, Europe had been 30 so years without any conflict. They had hoped that war was a thing of the past. They were making agreements and having discussion to continue the process of peace throughout Europe and the world. But then within a decade, by 1914, when this war started, all of Europe and eventually considered the world would be involved in war. So this first lesson and section, it talks about marching towards war, the things that were happening throughout Europe that would eventually lead to war. So the first one, titled PanSlavism, this is a nationalistic movement to unify the Slavic people. So we're also going to talk a lot about this area right here, which is the Balkan Peninsula, if you remember that from geography. So there was a crisis that arose in the Balkans. A lot of the people in this area are of Serbian or Balkan, Serbian origin, and Slavic origin. So, also I was going to mention, so when this war started, it wasn't called World War I, it was called the Great War, because obviously there was not a World War II yet. And so since it involved a lot of the world, it was considered the Great War. Continuing with this one, Greece, Serbia, Montenegro, Romania, Bulgaria had freed themselves from Turkish rule, and they wanted to free others. Russia said they wanted to protect their little Slavic brothers. And so, again, a lot of attention focused on the Balkan Peninsula. So today we really only have 6. They're a little longer, but there's only 6 today. So we'll talk about some of the major countries and their involvement and views on things at this time. So Russia's goals at this time, by encouraging unrest in the Balkans, they hoped to weaken Austrian and Turkish power. So here's Turkey, okay, modern day Turkey. This is Italy. Austria would be up above here. It would then gain 2 straits, the Bosporus and the Dardanelles. So this is the Black Sea, this is the Mediterranean, and these are the 2 straits right here that would allow Russia to have access to the Mediterranean, so they could go through the Bosporus and the Dardanelles. And that would allow them a warm water outlet to the Mediterranean and the profitable Near East trade, which would then be over in Southwest Asia and the rest of Asia. So they could go through here, Mediterranean, Suez Canal into the Red Sea, and over into the Indian Ocean and off to Asia. All right. So with Germany, there's the name of Kaiser Wilhelm II. I had written down from a previous textbook Kaiser William, but in our current textbook his name is Wilhelm. But Kaiser Wilhelm II became the ruler of Germany, and he did so after forcing Bismarck out of office, or forced him to resign. And once that had happened, then he turned and said, oh, he felt so bad that he had to resign, but everybody knew it was just, it was fake. It was, you know, he's the one that forced him out of that position. So Germany, they also wanted to increase their strength in the Balkans and to enlarge their own Near Eastern trade. Influence was gained by diplomatic visits to Turkey by Kaiser Wilhelm II. And the word or the name Kaiser is actually Latin for Caesar. And by financial support for a Berlin to Baghdad railroad. That concept was an idea of theirs, and so again, that's why they wanted to be involved in this region. So here's that Berlin to Baghdad railroad. Okay. So also at this time, we need to understand two agreements that had come about. The first is called a Triple Entente, Great Britain, Russia, and France. And that group opposed the Triple Alliance, which was made up of Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy. So as we go along, I will mention it. The notes may reference those two alliances or groups. So Great Britain was opposed to either Russia or Germany increasing their power in the Balkans, because Great Britain also had an interest in that region. They didn't want to have any conflict with them not being able to get through the Mediterranean, through the Suez Canal, and off to India. And so that they were just concerned that that sea route to India and the threat of the Suez Canal being blocked by these other two countries. That's why they were concerned. Okay? Greater Serbian movements were weakened by two factors. One, no one of the great powers could be counted on to support Serbia. And secondly, there was a lack of cooperation among the Balkan peoples, a lot of dissension and distrust among those groups. There was also a First and Second Balkan War. Serbia and Austria, between those two groups, relations were reaching a breaking point. And so this next little section, at least on my notes, it doesn't exactly match in the new book, but the next section talks about the Balkan Peninsula being considered the powder keg of Europe. So I usually talk about this example. So, you know, if everyone's sitting in your seats, and I would say, so if I had a keg, okay, a big powder keg, black powder inside, sitting here, would anybody be nervous? And, you know, a couple of students might say, yeah, they would be a little bit nervous about it. Okay? If I had a fuse coming out of that keg, you know, 6 inches long and just sitting there, then, you know, a few more hands would go up. Yes, they're more nervous about it. Then what if I was standing by it with a lit match? Okay? Then you might be a little more concerned because the potential is there for it to go off. So that's why it's referenced as Europe being the powder keg of Europe. So this next event that we'll talk about, was it the event that started the war? Not necessarily, but a lot of people consider it the match or the spark. So that powder keg represents all of the potential problems, the contention, the distrust, their own ideas, their own wants and desires for these countries. So all of that, you know, the relations between countries reaching a breaking point. That's the powder keg. And so this next event is what set it off. Okay? Archduke Francis Ferdinand, he was the heir to the Austrian throne, and while visiting Sarajevo, him and his wife, okay, they were riding in an open car. His wife's name was Sophie. They were visiting. Anyway, while visiting, he was shot and killed, point blank range, and this crime set off events that would bring on the World War. I think within a month after this event, the war had started. The assassin, he was a 19-year-old Bosnian student of Serbian origin, so his name was Gavrilo Princip, and he was a member of a group called the Black Hand. The Black Hand was a secret society who were committed to ridding Bosnia of Austrian rule. And so since the Archduke was the heir to the Austrian throne, that's why they had him assassinated. Now, I had a professor at college in one of my European history classes, and he spent pretty much a whole class period discussing this event. And one thing that I remember him talking about was, so when a dignitary, like a president, a leader of a country or whatever, goes through a city, the route that they take, they call it the parade route, because there are people along the side looking at them, waving at them as they go by. Let's say that you know, the parade route was going to come up a road and continue on, and they felt like, oh, there might be the potential for somebody to do something. So they decided late, so not everybody knew about it, to change the parade route. And so they were going to come up a road and then turn and go down this other road. Well, this particular, I think I have a picture at the end of the notes. Gavrilo Princip was standing on a corner, and so the original route, the route would have been gone right by him, but when they changed their route, it turned, so they actually faced him. So he stepped out from the crowd and shot them both. So just ended up being a better for him as the assassin. But as they later found out, there were many people, you know, 8 or 10 people along the route that had weapons on them, and they were prepared, if they had the chance, to carry out this assassination. All right, and our final one today then. So Leopold von Berchtold, who was the Austrian foreign minister, suspected the crime was of Serbian origin. And so with that knowledge, he wrote a letter to Kaiser Wilhelm II of Germany, asking them for their help. And our first one on the next page will be kind of Germany's answer to this question of, would you help us? So this is the end of page 1. This is a picture of Gavrilo Princip, who is the assassin, and I guess the building or wall where close to wherever the assassination took place, they have a little plaque in the wall that says, "From this place on 28 June 1914, Gavrilo Princip assassinated the heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, Franz Ferdinand, and his wife, Sophia." So anyway, that's the end of page 1. Thank you.